Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I wanted to wind back the clock a little bit to when I turned 18, which was in 2017. I remember for my 18th birthday, my dad took me to the local pub, and it was like, because you can go to the pub for the first time and actually drink and stuff like that. I went in there, there's this big Irish pub, and I remember there was this one bloke, and he said to me, he was very, very drunk, he was like, You've just turned 18. Oh, we got to prove you're a real man. And so he went to the barkeep and he was like, Barkeep, give me one of everything. This lad here, he's just turned 18. Give me one of everything. And so the bartender took one of every single spirit that was behind the bar and poured it into this one big glass. Don't know how much it must have cost him. It must have cost him like 50 quid. But it was honestly like a half pint full of spirit. Whiskey, vodka, bourbon, everything, right? And he handed it to me, he's like, get that down you, prove you're a real man. And I remember thinking at the time, oh God, I've got to drink this in one go and not throw up, because if I throw up, I'm not a real man, I'll never be a real man. So, oh God, it's making me feel sick a little bit about it now. But I drank the whole thing, and I just about managed to keep that vomit from coming up. And he was like, well done, lad. Well done. And I ended up really, really drunk out of it, and probably said some stupid shit and just did stuff that I probably would regret now. But, do I regret doing it? Not entirely, but certainly a little bit. I think I less regret the action and more the fact that I regret being persuaded into doing something, coerced into doing something that I didn't really want to do. I didn't want to drink this. I didn't want anything to do with it, but I did it. And I think it's kind of a testament to what I would do differently if I could go back to being 18 with all the knowledge that I've since acquired. I'm now 27 years old, so we're going back 8 years, right? 9 years, sorry. And I just think all the stuff that I've done in my life, I can put it into 3 camps. I can still look at that and go, good job, man. You did well. I would have done that exact thing today. In fact, brilliant. I might not have even had the guts to do that now, right? Some of the films that I've made, some of the times that I've gone out and done something absolutely, like good for other people. I gave, I bought a homeless bloke some chips and sat down with him and had a long, long chat with him. And he told me about the homeless in central London. He was in Chiswick, which is a kind of a posh part of London. So it was like, he saw the people in central London as the homeless, and he wasn't homeless almost. And then I thought of him as homeless, so that's like 2 layers of homelessness. And I think, good job me, I did a good thing there. I'm glad I bought him those chips. And in the moment, I certainly felt a little bit uncomfortable. I felt like I was putting myself out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad I did it. Then there's the stuff where I'm like, look, I wouldn't have done it today, but I can see why I did it. So, for instance, I think the main thing that would fall into this category is I had a friend who is no longer a friend of mine, and he ended up having some allegations against him to do with, sex. And I ended up defending him from them because there was no evidence. It was all based on one testimony, and then everyone was about to just get rid of him completely. And I moved heaven and earth to make sure that he got off with that. And I regret it in retrospect. However, I can at least see that I thought I was doing the moral thing, right? I thought I was doing a good thing, although now I would not have done that, right? So that all works out. And then there's the third category, which is just, what the hell was wrong with you? So, I'd say some of the stuff I was doing when I was really because I've quit drinking now for just over 2 years. And before that, I was getting quite bad. And definitely some of the texts that I would send to people, some of the stupid stuff that I would do, some of the rants, you end up crying and stuff like that. Stuff that I really regret doing, right? And it's just, I can look at it and go, what the hell was wrong with you? So those are the 3 camps those are the 3 categories of thing that I can look back on, and the 3 ways that I can see things. So ultimately, I do see there's not a huge amount in that first category of stuff that I remain really, really proud of. There's a lot of stuff in that I can see why I did it, but yeah, no. And then there's the stuff where I can just look back at it and go, God, there was something up with you, you know? And I think if I could go back with all the knowledge that I have now, I hope that I would be able to completely nullify that third category of what the hell's wrong with you. I would be able to get rid of it. I mean, sure, I'm sure I still do stuff now that me in the future would go, what was that? Why did you do that? That was stupid, right? Like, for instance, a couple of years ago, I made a video which was, basically I ran out of video ideas quite early on, and I put the camera in this really precarious position, and I made a video about how it was in a precarious position. I would not have made that video today, and I look back at it and go, what the hell was up with that? Why did I do that? That was stupid, right? And that's on this very channel, you know, and I'm not gonna take it down because I think it should remain as a testimony of how people grow and how there's imperfections in everything, right? So if I could go back to 18, I think the first thing that I would do is all the times where I thought I was standing up to my employer, right, and standing for workers' rights and all that sort of stuff, but in reality, I was just being a little brat. Like, we had to do 72-hour weeks at this one place that I was working at to retrofit the store into this new sort of version, right? And so we did 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. And at the time, I was moaning and all this, that, and the other. And I think now, if I went back in time, I would have just gotten on with it and I would have just done it, right? And not complained nearly as much as I did, right? And that's the case for a lot of things. So I've had quite a lot of jobs, and I've realized that I've lost a lot of jobs because I've been so, I don't know, what's the correct word? I think it's that I just went into things thinking I am the arbiter of morality, I am perfect, they're always wrong, and I'm always right. And now I don't have that black and white thinking nearly as much. I'm sure I still do to an extent, but not nearly as much. So I think now, if I could go back in time, I would suck up a lot more than I did. Not in terms of two people, but just, you know, taking things on and not moaning nearly as much as I did. I think that's the first thing that I would say. I think the second thing is I would save a lot more of my money. Not spending it on bloody drinking and smoking and fucking doing drugs and all this, that and the other. I would do a lot less of that, right? Because look, I'm sure there's a couple good times that came out of it. There's some decent things that happened. But what you forget is that the overwhelming majority of those times were really quite fucking boring, actually. So ultimately, yeah, I would spend a lot less money doing stupid shit like that. I would put a lot more effort into my health because I've had to start getting a lot more health conscious now, I think as a consequence of my lifestyle from a few years ago when I ate like shit and I treated my body like shit and I just didn't do anything all day. I didn't do any physical exercise. That's another thing I would do, is I would have started going to the gym at 18 rather than at like 25 or whenever I did start, right? I was always against the idea of going to the gym because it cost £30 a month. Seriously, get over yourself past me. I wouldn't have done that now. I would have just gotten on with it, done the workout, because the benefits that you get out of working out, look, I'm not a muscular bloke, right? That's not very good, right? But I'm not in it for muscles, I'm not in it for tone or anything like that, or like a chiseled sort of body. But the vitality that comes out of it, that makes you feel like you're ready to take on the world, I think that's worth a lot more than £30, right? And a few hours of your week, you know? So that's something I would do. I'd start going to the gym. With relationships, I would have left a lot more of the relationships than I did, rather than just let them cycle into something miserable, right? Which is what I always did, because I always thought it was going to get better, but it never did, right? It never got better. It always got worse. And then the tiniest little day where something was nice, you'd cling on to that and just make it as if like that's going to happen again. And when we get to the good times again, it's going to be like that all the time. No. That is not how the world works. Really what you need is you need someone that's compatible with you, that shares your same world values, right? And what I would do is I would not treat relationships as like, do they have the exact same personality as me? Do they like the exact same music and TV and films and all this shit as me? No. Who cares about all of that stuff? Because the whole point is, in a relationship, is you show one another your respective worlds, right? And if you like all the same stuff already, what do you have to show one another? You know what I mean? So that's something I would do. I would be a lot more open to just, you know, me at 18, to just being with people that share the same world values. That's the most important thing, but I was getting with people who I liked the same music as them, but I disagreed with them politically. You can't disagree with your partner politically, you know what I mean? Because that's not your entire world value, but it's a big part, you know, how you think the country and the world should be run. I think you should be in some sort of agreement with it. I'm not saying you have to agree on absolutely everything. You know, God knows that I don't agree with my current partner on everything. However, we still share the same overall world value, right? In that we want the same sort of things and we want the same kind of world, right? So that's what I would do, is I would take what really matters a lot more seriously and ignore the guff, because the guff is so easy to get hyper focused on. But it feels like it's more important than it is, but it's not important in the slightest. So those are some of the main things that I would have done. I think financially, I would have started investing a lot more. I tried investing during the pandemic and I was really, really bad at investing, in that I somehow managed to lose money during the pandemic, right? When the stocks were basically just guaranteed as a free money machine, I lost money. How did I do that? Well, because I essentially was too impatient and I kept selling stuff when it were low and I kept buying stuff when it were high, because I buy into hype cycles. And then, you know, I was the sort of person that would have gotten done in by the GameStop thing. I didn't buy into GameStop, by the way, but it's the kind of thing that I would have gotten, you know, down on, you know. So I would have taken the idea of there is more than the next year ahead a lot more seriously, because I didn't think of, you know, in 2017, I couldn't imagine a world of 2019. I couldn't imagine me today in 2026. That's a foreign version. That's something that's not even me. You know what I mean? So those are the things that I would do differently, is I would invest properly and sustainably and safely for the long term. I would treat relationships about what's important rather than what's not important. I would cut down on the drinking and the drugs and all of that sort of guff. And ultimately, I think I would be kinder to myself. And I know it's easy to say, be kind to yourself, when your own anxiety is sitting there going, you're useless, you're shit at this, how can anyone like you, what's wrong with you, all of this, that and the other. But that's never going to go away, right? If you've got some kind of anxiety sort of thing, yeah, you can take antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, it can kind of nullify it, but that's not for me, you know? What I would have done is I would have just tried to be kinder to myself in general. And I know that's a bit of a thanks, I'm cured sort of thing, but I would have just, what I certainly would have done, I would have done a lot less miserable, melancholic ranting into my phone, right? I wrote so much random crap that doesn't matter, that I look back on and I cringe completely at, right? I just go, what was wrong with you, Josh? Why did you write this stuff? It's so bad. Do you think you're being deep here? You're not. Do you think you're being insightful? You're not. You're just another fucking teenager who thinks he's smart when he's not. And that's, I think, the main thing that I would have done differently if I could start again from 18, is to recognize that I am not special. I sort of would say at the time that I wasn't special and that, oh, I know I'm nothing special, but I treated myself like I was. I thought I was the fucking dog's bollocks, you know? And sure, it's nice to have the confidence for yourself. I don't think that you should be down on yourself. However, I think there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, right? And I certainly shifted over into the arrogant territory. So I would try and do a lot less of that, because it's so easy to give yourself almost this God complex of just, oh yeah, I'm brilliant, everyone else is wrong, I'm always right. And then when I look back at these situations, I realize most of the time they were in the right and I was in the wrong. And I've had to do a fair bit of apologizing in my life to things that I did ages ago. And I like to think that if I was able to go back and do things the way that I'm talking about now, that only about 10% of those apologies would have ever been needed. And I think, finally, I would have cut toxic people out of my life a lot sooner. And not just in relationships, just in general. You know, friends that give you a bad vibe, but you hang out with them sometimes anyway because, oh no, they're a bit of a laugh, I guess. Fuck that. What matters is, do you feel safe and comfortable and contented with this person, right? No? Is that the answer? If it's no, then stop hanging out with them. I was terrified of stopping hanging out with people. I think because when I was a kid, I only really had one friend, and we had a big falling out at one point because he did something and I said to him, I'm never going to talk to you again. And then a month went by and I got really lonely and I took him back. And I think now I would try and do a lot less of that, because I think I would rather be lonely and in the knowledge that I'm not surrounded by awful people than be surrounded by awful people and get to at least comfort myself with, well, at least I'm not lonely. Because that's what I had. I surrounded myself with loads of toxic people. And at the end of the day, it didn't bring me any happiness. I have very few fond memories of these people. Ultimately, all they are is a life lesson to me. And I think if I could go back in time and do it all again from the age of 18, I wouldn't need these life lessons because I've already done it. And if I could do it again, I like to think, sure, I would make mistakes again, because God knows that I'm not perfect now and that I'm going to continue making mistakes into my late 20s and into my 30s and so on and so forth, right? You see like people in their 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s who make mistakes, right? You're never going to stop growing and maturing and learning new things. However, I think with retrospective, you are able to see that you could have done stuff differently. And I like to think that with the framework that I have now in my own mind, I would be a lot more well prepared for life than I was at the time. Because honestly, I still feel like a child sometimes, you know? Say when you're unemployed, or you know, you go into the dole office and this, that and the other, and you're just doing this really stupid shit. Like, I think the worst thing I ever did is, I can't remember, I think I got sanctioned by the Universal Credit people, and I started blasting them with texts, endless texts, like, call me, what's wrong with you, you people are evil scum, this, that and the other. I wouldn't have done stuff like that, because you know what, it doesn't get you anywhere. Being nasty to people does not progress you in your life. There's a difference between standing up for yourself and tearing others down. And tearing down people who are just doing their job just for a good, honest day's pay, even if they are doing something which means they kind of have to be a dick to people, you know, it's not worth ruining their day, ruining their week, and keeping them up at night thinking, God, what was all that about? So, yeah, I never like to claim that I'm a good moral person, because I think people that claim stuff like that, it's the equivalent of a bloke going, oh, I'm a nice guy. It's like, no, you're not. If you have to say it, you're not a nice guy. You know, so I don't say that I'm a nice guy. Same reason I don't call myself a feminist, because I feel like if I call myself a feminist, like, I'm a bloke, right? Going into women's spaces being like, I'm a feminist too, look at me. It's like, no, I support women's rights, etc., LGBTQ plus rights, etc., but I'm not one of them, you know? I can be an ally, I can support these causes, but it's the reason that I don't call myself a feminist, right? So it's because of that. And I think the same thing sort of applies for life in general, is I would be a lot less self-smug, I would be a lot less congratulatory, I'd be a lot less desperate for attention and approval from others, because I very much was. I mean, I would make a YouTube video and I would beg my friends to give me feedback on it and like give me approval. It's like, oh yeah, Josh, that was a great bloody video. That's all I wanted to hear. But it doesn't do anything, you know? Because at the end of the day, I think what really matters is, do you leave the world in a better place than you leave it, right? And I feel like now I can say yes, but certainly at the time, no, I would have, if I'd died for whatever reason at the age of 22, I would have left the world in a much worse state than I found it in, you know? So ultimately, I think I would try to be kinder to myself. I would try to take my work a lot more seriously, not try and pursue this endless idea of being a filmmaker, creative, oh, I'm going to be the next Christopher Nolan, like every bloody film student tries to do, with that sort of delusion of grandeur and that sort of lust for power, especially that I had when I was doing some of the big films, you know, where you're in control of these sets of like sort of 10, 15 people, and it's like, yeah, I'm the big boss, I know what I'm doing, you know, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, no, you don't. You're a bloody 20-year-old kid who doesn't know shit from anything, right? And I would say to my old self, right, pull your socks up, suck it up, get on with stuff, stop moaning, cut the toxic people out of your life, stop being a dick for no reason when you're not getting any gain out of it, stop trying to be the next Christopher Nolan, stop trying to be something that you're not, and just be yourself. honestly, I didn't actually know who Joshua Morrison, was until I was about 20 years old. You know, I'd be sat in a group of friends and I'd be there like, you know, he's the funny one. He's the one that tells the interesting anecdotes. He's the one that's a bit of a wild card. You know, he's that, you know, but then I looked at myself and I was like, what am I? And as time has gone on, I think I've realized what I am. I'm the more somber, down to earth sort of one, you know? I'm not the funniest. I'm not the most insane, but I'm also not completely boring and a complete stick in the mud. I'm somewhere in the middle, right? And I think ultimately I'm good for, you know, if people want to come to talk about a personal issue or they got something on their chest, you know, so I've told my friends, you know, if they ever want to talk to me about anything, they can, you know. That's another thing actually that I would do differently if I could go back to being 18, is not gossip nearly as much as I did and keep secrets. When someone gives you a secret, seriously take it fucking seriously, rather than just spreading it because you think it's kind of funny, you know, or because everyone else is doing it. No, that's not applicable, right? If everyone else jumped off a cliff, I know it's the old adage that your mum would tell you, if everyone else jumped off a cliff, would you jump off it too? But seriously, would you? At the time, maybe I would have, but now, I like to think I would have stood back and gone, if it's what you want to do, then do it. I've tried persuading you, not worked. You're clearly dead set on it. Go for it. I'm not scraping you off the pavement. And yeah, I think ultimately, I would say to my former self, and what I would do differently, is just be more aware that you aren't perfect, right? And know the difference between getting yourself down over things that don't matter and honestly critiquing your own personality and your own self and your own actions. That's what I would do differently. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me. That's a bit of a video just sort of about my regrets, I suppose, in my past. Because look, God knows that I'm not a perfect individual, and if you're watching this, God knows that you're probably not a perfect individual either, because you obviously like the idea of being able to go back and be your 18-year-old self again and do it all again with the knowledge that you've gained since and the perspective that you've gained from maturing into whatever age it is you are now. But yeah, leave your comments and the thoughts below. Would you go back in time and start life again from the age of 18 if you could? I'm thinking I would, because I think with the butterfly effect, I think some of the things that I still value now, I would still be able to have achieved, because I think a lot of the things that I value now were already being rolled into something that existed when I was 17. So some of the people that I knew that introduced me to other people that I value, that are some of the friends that I know now, that all started when I was 17. And some of the toxic people that I knew, that all came when I was sort of 18, 19, 20. So yeah, ultimately, I think I would go back, because I'm sort of safe in the knowledge that I could do it again better, and some of the good things that I have now, I wouldn't have to give up. Well, I'd have to give them up temporarily, but then I would get them back. And if I didn't get them back, you know what? I would find something else to value. But leave your own comments in the thing below. Would you go back in time and do it again from the age of 18? If so, what would you do differently? What are some of your biggest regrets? Do you think my regrets are kind of nothing? Do you think maybe you've watched this and you've gone, oh crap, maybe this guy isn't as good as he seems? You know, I've been watching him for a while. He seemed like a nice guy. Sounds like he's a bit of a twat, to be honest. You know, fair enough, I suppose. You know, I can only take ownership of the person that I was in the past. But at the end of the day, I am the person that I am now because of that person. And growth comes out from the ashes like a phoenix, and that's what allows you to fly away. And I like to think that I'm flying, doing decently. And, you know, sure, there are problems now. I've got issues with myself now that I still want to work on. But you know what? It's a lot more manageable than it once was. So, yeah, leave your thoughts below. Have a good one, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye. There.